That is indeed Catch Your Breath by the Demon Finn Balor. Hey Finn, hopefully you're doing well, man. Hopefully you will be coming back to the ring soon enough. Hello and welcome to Change the F Up, the only place where the format is never the same, and that's the way, we like it, sorry. That's my best gold member impersonation. I am, of course, Nate the Effing Great, and here with me is indeed the Sally to my Jack Skellington, Miss VicTori Belle, who has had quite the very eventful weekend. I mean, honestly, I've seen a lot of things that were going on with you. You had a fashion show going on for the upcoming Halloween, a couple of skits that were, of course, filmed from Dead Guard's Classic Coffins, which you guys can check out anytime, and also give Jedgar a like, and maybe talk to him on Facebook. He's an amazing guy, and you will not be disappointed at all. And hey, for any of those ladies that like to be vampire girls, be a dead girl, because reasons. Do I really need any more? And of course, this is Change the F Up, of course, on Spreaker.com, iTunes, Player.fm, PodDirectory.com, Stitcher.com, IWNerd, as well as Satchel Podcast Player. And good news, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on YouTube. That is right. Check out Mr. NTG 1990, and you will indeed get all of these exclusive videos on YouTube, as well as I will try harder to get them timed right, where I will have, 15 minutes, this is when we're talking about this, 30 minutes we're talking about this, blah, 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 as well as hopefully now we are on SoundCloud as well, so reaching out a little bit more, you guys, and it is going to be awesome to hear from you guys, and we're going to try to get your guys' opinion, so feel free to send us your questions either via Twitter by at VictoryBell04, as well as at Nate Effing Great, or leave us a comment here on Spreaker.com, and we will answer it right away. But we got a big-time show for this week, because we are continuing, basically, our England is Awesome series. Last week we talked about werewolves, vampires, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This week is going to be a lot more eventful, because we're going into a little bit more of a controversial figure in Jack the Ripper. We're going to talk about Dorian Gray. We're also going to talk about Frankenstein. I mean, what more can you get better than that? So let's get right into it. Let's not waste any time. Starting off with the one, the only, Mr. Frankenstein. And I want to know your opinion about this first before we get into it, Tori. Do you think that Frankenstein is more of the monster, or is Frankenstein more of the doctor? Because I got my opinion on this, and there's a lot of people that have their opinions on it, but what's your opinion about the name of Frankenstein? Who does it really belong to?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm going right off the book here. Frankenstein is Dr. Frankenstein's last name, and I thought Frankenstein's monster is the monster. I mean, some people correlate just his name with the monster, but my own opinion is it's definitely the doctor who created him is Frankenstein. He's Dr. Frankenstein, and his inner demons might have created this monster that people call Frankenstein, but no, he's the doctor.
Yeah. We talked about a lot about how some of these things could evolve inner demons or different kind of deep level stories about with our vampires and our werewolves deal. With Frankenstein, I think it's a little more different than that, because basically this guy is trying to create something to terrorize the village, and really it doesn't exactly go his way now, does it?
Huh?
I was saying, like, it doesn't really go his way. He wants to create a monster to terrorize and, just basically.
Does he want to terrorize the village?
That's how.
I mean, I guess in some versions, maybe. To me, I thought he just wanted to prove that he can create life. It's like a godlike persona for him.
That's right.
I felt like he wanted to show, like, I can create life. I can bring people back from the dead.
That actually does sound a bit familiar too. I guess I was going off of I think a lot of the kid-friendly Frankenstein stories that I've heard, but you've obviously had a little more experience with, knowing the kind of more of the backstory behind, what Frankenstein was, as well as why he created the monster, why he did this, and, what to become of that. I mean, geez, Frankenstein is one of those guys Well, I'm talking about the monster, of course. He's become one of those, another household name. I mean, you talk about Count Dracula, you talk about werewolves, you talk about Frankenstein. He's definitely within maybe the top 3, top 5 people when you think about, classic horror movies.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I mean, I think out of the classic Frankenstein horror movies, I definitely was afraid of the monster because I forget which Frankenstein this is. I know there's hundreds of different versions of Frankenstein, but there's definitely the black and white, one of the originals where he almost befriended like this little girl, and they were like looking at flowers. It was nice, and then he threw her in a lake just because he didn't know any better. He just threw her in the lake and she died and drowned. And I was like,
Wow.
He's scary. This is the worst. but yeah, I don't know. Frankenstein always has this innocence about him to me that, like, he didn't know that was the wrong thing to do because it's like a rebirth. He's like a new person, like the baby or the monster of Dr. Frankenstein, and he's supposed to be taught right from wrong. And for the most part, in most things about Frankenstein, I feel like he veers to the negative because of how the doctor is interior, like his interior and ulterior motives seems to be negative. So this monster this thing turns into a monster.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know, how do you feel?
I think it is kind of one of those things that, he is one of those people who is, I don't know if I would consider the monster a human or not, but you do nail a good point that, he doesn't know better and he's still trying to adjust to everything. I mean, it's almost like bringing a caveman out of the, ice age and just expecting him to just apparently adapt with everything. He's got all these things kind of rushing at him all at the same time. He's trying to be normal. He's trying to, I guess kind of fit in, but then there are other times where he's not exactly, fitting in. He's intentionally trying to be the villain. And actually, what's really crazy is the Hammer films that did a lot of the Frankenstein movies apparently had some of him doing some heroic deals, and then they're having him being the villain. What's really interesting is that it says right here, starting with the evil of Frankenstein, these films, the Hammer films, are standalone stories with occasional vague references to previous films, much the way of the James Bond films form a series. That is actually really ingenious, and the fact that, they're making it kind of like, almost like going back to what we were talking about last week with the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde deal, where it's like, sometimes he's a good guy and he knows better, sometimes he's a bad guy, maybe he doesn't know better, but at the same time, maybe it's just that ulterior motive of doing what he was originally created to do, and that was to terrorize. I mean, you mentioned that, the Dr. Frankenstein created him to prove that he can create life, but I think also he wanted to punish the people that said, oh, you can't do it, you're just a crazy madman. Now he wants revenge. It's just like, what do you think of me now, huh? Look at this, look at my big monster. But
I definitely can see that.
Yeah, it just goes again back to that deeper level, which, obviously being a part of this show, we kind of start realizing that we not only talk about these things, but we find a lot of deeper meanings behind these things. And I think that for Frankenstein, he is still alive. He is still a human being. And he should not be, treated any differently than any other, human. I think that, he's probably going to just need a couple different ways of getting through to him. But at the same time, can't really say that he's not, not trying, at least. But, geez Louise, I mean,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
I mean, I think he does have some of that, like, the beast-like syndrome, like, from Beauty and the Beast, which I love Beauty and the Beast, where he's like, no one will love me, no one will ever care for me, I'm a monster, woe is me, but he does want that initial love. He wants acceptance from people, and that makes him sometimes carefully, because when people don't accept him because he looks the way he does, he gets angry and maybe kills someone.
Right.
Depending on the version that we're talking about. But most of them, it seems like he gets overfilled with some sort of emotion that causes a negative effect. So, I don't know. I think overall, I'd say I love Frankenstein. I love his character, or the monster Frankenstein. I love what the character brings and all the stories that can revolve around him. Like the one that I was talking about a little bit last week was Van Helsing, and Van Helsing, like in the early 2000s, Hugh Jackman movie, the Frankenstein actually provided life to all the vampires. So vampires were trying to reproduce, and every time they tried, they could never create life because they never started out living. So they would just all die instantly, and then the Frankenstein monster, who was dead and came living, provided life to all of them. So it's like, whoa, that's a crazy way to think of Frankenstein, but I can dig it. It's fun. It's like its own little cult following with the werewolves and vampires and Frankenstein, and you gotta love it. Oh,
definitely, definitely. I think I definitely do agree. There's, I think, no bigger star when it comes to being an under. He can be a gentle giant when he needs to be, but then there are other times where he could be a pretty badass guy. But Frankenstein will always remain in our hearts as one of the guys that really stood out in the horror movie genre. But all right, so going from this kind of sappy little deal with Frankenstein to this, I had to actually really look into, and I especially looked at it last night, and I just got completely lost about halfway into it because I actually had to read the plot of how this whole entire deal was. And that is, of course, the picture of Dorian Gray. When it first started off, I was reading, I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of interesting. Okay. And then halfway through, it's kind of like, what? And I kept reading, and I felt like I kind of kept getting lost. So I think I'm going to let you kind of take the lead on this. Maybe you can help me kind of put the pieces together, because I'm feeling like there is still a big picture there, no pun intended, but I'm missing something here, because like I said, first starting off seemed like a great story there.